I spent last month volunteering at a disaster relief training session, and something happened that completely changed how I think about emergency preparedness. A veteran coordinator who's responded to hundreds of emergencies across the country pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. She told me that most people prepare for the disaster they saw on TV, not the disaster that's actually coming to their neighborhood. Then, she showed me the updated emergency stockpile guidelines that experts are now telling every household to have immediately. What I discovered after diving deep into emergency response protocols and talking to disaster coordinators is that the families who survive disasters best aren't the ones with the most expensive gear. They're the ones who have specific items that have been identified as absolutely critical based on real world data from recent disasters. Let me start with what experts call the absolute foundation of survival, which is a comprehensive water storage system with purification capability. This isn't about just buying cases of bottled water from the store. What most people don't understand is that while the recommendation is 1 gallon per person per day for drinking, you actually need 2 gallons per person per day when you factor in cooking, hygiene, and basic sanitation needs. Here's where the guidance gets really smart. Emergency response teams have learned from disasters like Hurricane Maria and the Texas freeze that water infrastructure can be down for weeks, not days. Current guidelines now recommend at least 2 weeks of water storage minimum, with 1 month being optimal. The game changer is having water purification capability. Emergency responders have seen too many families run out of stored water and then get sick from contaminated sources. They now specifically recommend portable water filters rated for bacteria, viruses, and parasites, not just the basic camping filters that most people think are adequate. A coordinator who worked on Hurricane Ian told me that families with both stored water and purification systems were the ones helping neighbors instead of needing help. When their stored water ran low, they could safely use water from pools, rivers, or even rain collection. Experts recommend food-grade water storage containers, not just plastic bottles that degrade over time. We're talking about 55-gallon barrels or stackable water bricks that maintain water quality for years. The second critical item is an extended food supply, and this is where recommendations have completely changed based on hard data from recent disasters. Guidelines used to suggest 3 days of food. Now experts are telling families to prepare for at least 2 weeks, with 1 month being strongly recommended. Emergency response teams learned from disasters like the Texas freeze that grocery stores don't just run out of food. They stay closed for weeks when infrastructure fails. Supply trucks can't deliver, staff can't get to work, and even when power is restored, restocking takes time. What experts emphasize that most people miss is calorie density and nutritional completeness. They're not talking about snack foods and crackers. They want 2,000 plus calories per person per day of foods that provide complete nutrition without requiring cooking. Freeze-dried meals are specifically recommended for long-term storage because they maintain nutritional value for decades and require only water to prepare. But they also emphasize having foods that require no preparation at all. Things like nuts, dried fruits, and energy bars. After-action reports from Hurricane Katrina found that families with proper food supplies weren't just surviving. They were maintaining better mental health and making better decisions because they weren't constantly worried about their next meal. The psychological impact of food security during disasters cannot be overstated. When you know your family will eat well for weeks, you can focus on helping others and solving problems instead of scrambling for survival. The third essential item is an emergency communication device. Experts now consider emergency communication absolutely critical because getting help depends entirely on your ability to communicate your location and needs to emergency services. We're talking about a multi-band emergency radio with weather alerts, AM/FM capability, and shortwave frequencies. But what's emphasized is having multiple power sources: hand crank, solar charging, battery backup, and USB charging capability. During Hurricane Maria, Families with emergency radios were able to locate aid stations, receive evacuation instructions, and coordinate with rescue teams while everyone else was cut off from critical information. The guidance gets really smart here because experts recommend radios with two-way communication capability, not just receiving information, but being able to transmit your location and status to emergency services. Emergency response teams have seen too many situations where people were trapped or injured but couldn't signal for help. Having reliable communication equipment literally means the difference between being rescued and being forgotten. The fourth critical component is comprehensive first aid supplies. During disasters, you become your family's first responder. Hospitals get overwhelmed, ambulances can't reach you, and professional medical help might be days away. First aid recommendations go way beyond bandages and aspirin. Experts want trauma dressings for serious bleeding, burn gel for fire-related injuries, and diagnostic tools like thermometers and blood pressure cuffs. But what's really emphasized is prescription medication backup. The recommendation is at least a 30-day supply of any critical medications because pharmacies close, supply chains get disrupted, and refills become impossible. A coordinator who worked in Puerto Rico recovery told me that families with comprehensive medical supplies weren't just taking care of themselves, they were providing critical care to neighbors with injuries, chronic conditions, and medical emergencies. Specific medical supplies that save the most lives during disasters have been identified. Hemostatic gauze for controlling bleeding, emergency antibiotics for preventing infections, and epinephrine auto-injectors for severe allergic reactions. The fifth item is multiple light sources. Emergency response teams learned that lighting isn't just about seeing in the dark, it's about maintaining safety, morale, and functionality when everything else fails. Experts recommend layered lighting, headlamps for hands-free work, lanterns for area lighting, and emergency beacon lights for signaling rescue teams. Each lighting layer needs different power sources, rechargeable batteries for daily use, disposable batteries for extended emergencies, and solar charging capability for long-term disasters. During Hurricane Sandy, emergency workers found that families with proper lighting systems maintained better mental health and were able to continue normal activities like cooking and caring for children. The sixth essential is emergency heating and cooling capability. Climate control is emphasized as a survival necessity because extreme temperatures kill more people during disasters than almost any other factor. For heating, experts recommend safe indoor heating sources like kerosene heaters with proper ventilation and sleeping bags rated for cold temperatures, but they absolutely insist on carbon monoxide detectors with battery backup. For cooling, recommendations include battery-powered fans, cooling towels, and electrolyte replacement supplies. Heat stroke is a real killer, especially for elderly family members. Statistics from the Texas freeze show that carbon monoxide poisoning killed more people than anything else. The families who survived had safe, redundant heating systems. The seventh critical category is sanitation and hygiene supplies. Comprehensive sanitation is considered absolutely critical because poor sanitation leads to disease outbreaks that kill more people than the original disaster. Experts recommend extensive hygiene supplies, moist towelettes, hand sanitizer, feminine hygiene products, and waste disposal systems. They also want portable toilet supplies, heavy-duty garbage bags, plastic ties, and toilet chemicals. During Hurricane Katrina, emergency workers found that families who maintained good hygiene stayed healthier and maintained better mental health throughout the crisis. The eighth item is fire safety and starting equipment. Fire is both your friend and your enemy during disasters. You need controlled fire for cooking and heating, plus equipment to suppress dangerous fires. For fire suppression, recommendations include multiple fire extinguishers rated for different fire types, smoke detectors with battery backup, and escape ladders for multi-story homes. For controlled fire, experts recommend waterproof matches, magnesium fire starters, and portable camping stoves with fuel. When power is out and gas lines might be compromised, alternative cooking methods become essential. The ninth item is something that literally saved 400 families during Hurricane Ian. Emergency cash in small denominations becomes absolutely critical when electronic payment systems fail. Emergency response teams learned from Hurricane Sandy that when power grids fail, credit cards don't work, ATMs don't work, and digital payments become impossible. You're instantly back to a cash-only economy. During Hurricane Ian, emergency workers documented families with cash who were able to buy gasoline, food, and services while everyone else had nothing to trade. But here's the key. Small bills. Having ones, fives, tens, and 20s gives you exact payment capability. The recommendation is at least $500 in small bills per family stored in waterproof containers. The 10th essential is important documents and fireproof storage. Emergency response teams have seen too many families lose everything twice, once to the disaster and again to bureaucracy because they couldn't prove who they were or what they owned. Experts recommend fireproof, waterproof storage for copies of identification, insurance policies, bank account information, medical records, and emergency contact lists. Both physical and digital copies are wanted. Waterproof USB drives with encrypted documents plus physical papers and fireproof safes give you redundant protection. During Hurricane Katrina, families with proper document storage were able to start insurance claims and access bank accounts immediately, while others waited weeks just to begin recovery. The 11th category is tools and hardware. Emergency response teams learned that when professional help isn't available, families become their own maintenance crews. Having basic tools can literally save your life. Essential tools include adjustable wrenches for shutting off gas and water lines, multi-tools with pliers and screwdrivers, duct tape and zip ties for emergency repairs, and heavy-duty tarps for weather protection. Experts really emphasize knowing where your utility shutoffs are and how to use them. When gas lines rupture or water mains break, quick action prevents catastrophic secondary damage. The 12th item is personal protection equipment. Experts now emphasize protective equipment for navigating hazardous post-disaster environments. Work gloves, safety glasses, dust masks or respirators, and sturdy boots protect you from common disaster-related injuries. Broken glass, contaminated air, debris, and unstable structures all pose serious threats. The emphasis is that you can't help your family if you're injured doing basic survival tasks. Personal protection keeps you functional when everything around you is dangerous. The 13th essential is emergency shelter materials. Experts recommend these because your home might be damaged but still partially habitable, and improving it might be better than evacuation. Heavy-duty tarps, rope, bungee cords, and plastic sheeting can seal broken windows, cover roof damage, or create temporary living spaces when your home is compromised but not destroyed. These materials can also create safe rooms for chemical or biological threats. Plastic sheeting and duct tape can seal off part of your house for clean air when outside air becomes dangerous. The 14th item is backup power sources. Power outages affect everything from lighting to medical equipment, and having alternative power sources keeps critical devices operational when the grid fails. Solar power banks, battery generators, and hand crank chargers provide electricity for phones, radios, and medical equipment. Experts recommend devices with multiple charging options and the capacity to power your most critical needs. During Hurricane Maria, families with backup power were able to maintain communication with rescue services, power medical devices, and preserve food supplies, while everyone else lost everything. The 15th and final item is what experts call their game changer, because it solves the #1 problem that kills people in the first 72 hours, being found by rescue teams. Personal locator beacons or satellite communicators can transmit your exact GPS coordinates to emergency services. even when cell towers are down and the internet is out. These devices work anywhere and connect directly to rescue coordination centers. Emergency response teams learned from Hurricane Katrina that people died not because help wasn't available, but because rescue teams couldn't find them fast enough. Having reliable location. Capability means the difference between being rescued quickly and being forgotten. During Hurricane Ian, emergency workers documented multiple families who were located and rescued within hours because they had emergency locator devices, while others in the same area waited days for help. Look, I know this seems like a comprehensive list, and honestly, it is. But here's what experts want every household to understand. Disasters are getting more frequent, more severe, and lasting longer than ever before. You don't need to buy everything at once. The recommendation is building your emergency supplies gradually, focusing on one category per month. Start with water and food, then add communication and medical supplies, then work through the rest of the list. The families who prepare now will be the ones helping their communities later instead of needing help themselves. When disaster strikes, you want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. The goal isn't living in fear of disasters. The goal is being prepared so your family has options and can help others when normal systems fail. Your future self will thank you for taking this guidance seriously and preparing before disaster strikes your neighborhood.